Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 is upon us, and I, for one, am hyped out of my gobber. I actually really liked the original Nick All-Star Brawl. It had its flaws, a lot of them, but the game was fun. But 2 looks like it's about to take a huge honkin' dump all over the first game. It looks like a market improvement in just about every way. Instead of making essentially an update for the first game, the team at Ludosity basically overhauled the entire shebang, went full new on this thing. The graphics got a nice glow up, with both the characters and the stages looking much better. The animations look higher quality and more easily readable, which is the more important part. They changed up a lot in the mechanics too, some to make it feel more comfortable and more like Smash Bros. With the way tilts work, better shields, and tap jump, which is a gift from my slimy orange god because I hated having to overhaul 2 decades of muscle memory. Other mechanics they add because I guess someone on the team thought Guilty Gear was the cheese. The slime meter is the big new mechanic, allowing for a bunch of extra options like EX special moves, move cancelling, and big super attacks. Mechanically, this game looks way better than the first one. They also fixed one of my biggest issues with the first game, by having actual single player content instead of the pathetic excuse for an arcade mode. Instead of that, 2 has a full-on story mode. Sure, jury's out on whether it's gas or ass, but I'll have faith, why the heck not? If I were a bit more cynical, I'd say there's a catch. Everything looks way too good to be true. It's gotta be some catch, right? As long as I nail the roster, I got nothing to complain about. The first game had an alright roster, 25 characters, only a couple glaring omissions, only a few glaring additions, a bit of a representation problem, but it was solid for what it was. And hey, this dev team is online, they know its fan base. I'm sure they'll pick a bunch of cool new characters to add, and there's a ton of cartoons they haven't represented yet. A ton of shows from the 2000s and 2010s waiting for their chance in specific. As Timmy Turner would say way too stinking much in the later seasons of the show, nothing could possibly go wrong. I think he meant to say nothing could go right. Sometimes I see something, and I just have to sit and stare for a minute before I can even fathom any words to describe said thing. And after staring at this thing for what feels like an eternity, I finally come up with the most elegant and aptly descriptive word to describe this. Ass! I hate this. Oh, I hate this. I really don't like this roster at all. This single image was the most deflating thing I could have been exposed to. The roster kind of makes a couple of improvements over the first game, I suppose, but there are just so many things I find wrong with these choices. Okay, enough vague dread, time for explanatory dread. Before this image got strewn all across the web, at least the parts of the web that would care about the licensed Nickelodeon fighting game for 7-year-olds, the newcomers revealed were Squidward and Jimmy Neutron. I have no issues with either of those. It could be argued that Squidward was one of the biggest omissions from the first game, with it being kind of weird that Sandy was in before he got in. He's immensely popular and highly requested, so okay, yeah, that's a really good pick. Jimmy Neutron as well, fantastic choice. He wasn't in the first game, but his dad Hugh made it onto the roster, mostly for the meme factor, which is funny, but also what the hell, Jimmy is the main character, he's essential. From what I saw, he was consistently the most requested character outside of Timmy Turner and maybe Zuko, so it's great to see him finally make the cut. Along with them too, Donatello and Raphael were also revealed. These two aren't really bad picks either, but it's kinda hard to get super hyped for them when they feel so much more obligatory than exciting. Don't get me wrong, I love the Ninja Turtles, but Donnie and Raph definitely feel more like characters added to complete the turtle set rather than be hype new additions. Also, the fact that we're probably having 6 Turtles characters, a little insane. Personally, I would have been so much more interested if they had designs from the other shows that weren't just the 80s show. You know, the one that didn't even air on Nickelodeon originally. Not only would it be more representative, but it would make them look and play a lot more differently. Imagine if it was 2012 Donnie and Rise Raph. I feel like that would be just so much cooler. Okay, on to the ones that I first saw in the leak before the official release. I'm gonna go in order of how much I like their inclusion. So first off, El Tigre is a freaking amazing pick. He was absolutely one of my most wanted characters. The 2000s could use so much more representation, and El Tigre was one of my favorite shows growing up. I watched it so much. It was hard to believe that it only aired for 1 season, because I feel like it was on so much in Nicktoons. Given how action-packed the show is, he fits so well into this game. Good on them for such an unfathomably based inclusion. Looking at the rest of the roster, it feels like a miracle that we got a character as cool as El Tigre on the roster. but still, awesome. That's my guy. Plankton. That is one I struggle to call an outright bad pick, because he's the villain of the most popular show on the network. It's like getting upset they added Bowser to Melee. But, I don't know. I can't say I'm all that hyped for yet another SpongeBob character. I don't think Plankton is much the issue, but it's more that I don't love his inclusion enough to sweeten the sour of the picks that I hate. Speaking of picks that I hate, okay, not quite, but the Angry Beavers. Again, hard to be too upset at this one. The Angry Beavers was a popular show. Daggett and Norbert are objectively a fine enough pick, but my problem with this pick is that it's yet another 90s show on the roster. If there's anything I curse the devs for, it's being old people. The Turtles, all the 80s designs, a lot of these newcomers, 90s characters. The 2000s and 2010s feel so much more starved representation in comparison to the 90s. The only 2010 shows are The Loud House and Korra, and that one is a sequel series, so that's like half a point at best. There are so many blind spots, but God forbid they forget a single 90s show. The only series from the 90s that's not impossible, like some game show or live action show, is Rocket Power. That being said, I am a man of my biases. If that wasn't Angry Beavers and was Auto Rocket, I would have no complaints. Objectively, I have the same complaints, but subjectively, I loved Rocket Power as a kid. I watched that show so much growing up. I had the game on the GBA too. It was so fun. I loved Auto Rocket. And I played the hell out of him in Nickelodeon Party Blast 2. That game was awesome. Yeah, the Beavs are fine and all that junk, but I'm just tired of the 90s. Azula! She would be so hyped if she was the 4th Avatar character, I'm not counting Korra, because she is a great villain and an awesome character from an awesome show. So what's the problem? She's here before Zuko. That's the problem. Her being in isn't an issue. Her being in before Zuko, who is easily the most requested Avatar character, and easily a top 3 most requested character from the entirety of Nickelodeon, is just kind of insane. Like, your priorities aren't exactly in order here. It might just because they wanted a female character or a villain rep, I don't know. Maybe she'll be prevalent in the story mode? That could be the reason she's in over Zuko? But Zuko really should have been in way before Azula. It's just the order of operations here are all out of whack. I remember when I first saw this roster leak, and I just couldn't unsee the first thing that I saw. Gerald? Are you freaking serious? Gerald from Hey Arnold. Look, I like Hey Arnold. It's a great show. Gerald was my boy. But come on now. Helga was already the perfect rep for the series. She was more aggressive and fitting in a fighting game more than Arnold the non-fighter. Alright, you don't want Arnold because he's not a fighter. Gerald was barely more of a scrapper than Arnold was. Heck, probably even less than he was. Having Helga but not Arnold, fine, good. Having 3 Hey Arnold characters that aren't Arnold is just, huh? Also, having 3 Hey Arnold characters is just, huh? Could you really not think of anyone new to add that you had to double up like that? Hey Arnold, it's good. It's a good show. But I think anyone can agree that 3 characters is just too much. Heck, 2 is kind of pushing it. Gerald is kind of a trash pick. But Grandma Gertie is just insulting. What the hell is this? Are you joking me right now? Seriously, of all of the characters in Nickelodeon's vast library of shows, of icons, of characters, you choose the grandma from Hey Arnold? I like to think I know a decent bit of what the community wanted in this game, and I feel confident in saying that not a single person asked for Grandma Gertie from Hey Arnold. I know she can kind of fight a bit because that family has some adventurous roots, but are you kidding me? It's like a joke suggestion that even the jokers would say, okay, that's a bit too much of a joke to say, but she's in the game! Like, what? Were you so starved for female characters? Were you so starved for extra franchise representatives? What was the deal? What logic led to this? I want to be a fly on the wall in the meeting that decided to add Grandma Gertie to this fighting game. It's just too unfathomable. It's too dumb. It's too insane. What were they thinking? Also, it's more frickin' 90s characters. Can we 2000s kids eat, please?
Is something wrong yet?
I went back and forth on whether I found Grandma Gertie or Ember more insulting. And I'm gonna go with Ember. I hate this pick. if everyone on the roster was someone that I wanted in the game and she was still there, I would still say it's garbage. No, I'm kinda lying, but this is an awful pick. Side note, there is a particular instance involving this particular character that I am just not going to talk about because it would not do anything but lower my opinion on this, and it's kind of a serious thing that I don't think should influence my opinion on the silly fighting game. So on to what I think about her. You know how many episodes Danny Phantom has? 53. You know how many Ember is in? 6. 6 episodes. So they decided to add a 2-bit C-list character from this show, as opposed to, I don't know, like Tertiary doesn't even begin to describe what this character is. She is an offhand, barely appearing villain. I'll give her this. I saw at least one person ask for her, which is more than Grandma Gertie, but also awful choice. She's not prevalent in the series. She's not that related to Danny. She is not that important in the overall series. All she has is a rocker aesthetic, which there are other Nickelodeon characters who could fill that. If you wanted a music-based moveset, I can think of other characters. It feels like she was only picked because someone on the dev team had a childhood crush on her. That is the only reason I can fathom for this inclusion. Like it's just so bad, man. It's so bad. I hate it. I hate it so much. This is a pick genuinely, and I mean this genuinely, not metaphorically, or rhetorically, or poetically, or theoretically, or in any other fancy way. This pick is on the level of Corrin in Smash Bros. I'm saying it. I'm going there. I think it's that bad. And the fact that this is one of our pieces, one of our few pieces of 2000s rep. If you wanted another Danny Phantom character on the roster, first of all, why? You already have 2. Second of all, the Box Ghost is way more relevant and can make for a fun joke character. Skulker is literally the most reoccurring villain who isn't Vlad. Ember is not relevant. Ember is not important. Ember is an awful pick. Ember, I can't, I don't know how many ways I can say I hate it. I don't know how many ways I can, I'm upset. I'm getting upset. I'm getting heated. I'm getting tilted. It's just not working. I just don't like it. I just don't like Ember. I just don't know what they think. I just don't want to, Just what were they hooking? I also didn't mention Vlad, because it's not confirmed whether he's playable or a boss. I'm betting he's playable because why would he be in the box art otherwise? Now in the event that he wasn't playable, Ember just gets all the more awful as a choice. And if he is playable, she gets all the more unnecessary. So no matter what route you take, Ember is a horrible pick. Like, god damn bro, you could have anyone, yet you choose Ember from Danny Phantom? I hate it here. So I've been talking about some of the inclusions that really upset me, but what upsets me more than the inclusions is the combination of that and the omissions. When I look at who was added, there's a few good picks, but it skews so 90s focused again. Most of the new 2000s characters who aren't El Tigre are just repeats of franchises we've already had, more Danny Phantom, more Avatar. And there's absolutely no new 2010s characters at all. Not a single new Loud House character, despite that being one of the biggest Nick shows. Not another, say, Korra character. No one from a 2010 show like, say, Sanjay and Craig or Harvey Beaks. It's just, that's a dry spell. There are no 2010s in this roster. Like, are you telling me the only 2000 shows you could think to rep were more Danny Phantom, more Avatar, and you go back to the 90s? Furthermore, there are only 2 new Nick shows represented. El Tigre and Angry Beavers. Neither bad on their own, but that's it? There are so many other Nick shows that are still waiting in the wings for a character. And the lack of new shows represented just makes the double ups hurt even more. We seriously did not need 2 new Hey Arnold characters, or 2 new Danny Phantom characters. It should have been Vlad, and call it there. Ember, I'm gonna say one more thing about Ember. Ember being here on this roster means that we have a character from a Butch Hartman show who is voiced by Tara Strong. And it's not Timmy Turner. Where the hell is Timmy Turner? The Fairly Odd Parents behind SpongeBob is the second most important Nicktoons in their whole library. It ran for over 15 years, 10 seasons. Fairly Odd Baby is one of the most viewed things on the network. It is a super popular show, loved by many, part of so many people's childhoods, and Timmy Turner is one of the most important characters in Nick's library. So where the hell is he? Most people would say it has to do with rights issues with the whole parent company who owns some of Fairly Odd Parents, and another company who owns a little bit of part of it. And sure, that could be true, but there is a tennis mobile game that came out a few years ago, and Timmy Turner is in that. So you're telling me they can add Timmy to the tennis mobile game that nobody played, but they can't add Timmy to this game, who at least 3 people are gonna play? Either Ludosity didn't try hard enough to get him, or Nickelodeon didn't try hard enough to secure the rights to him. Either way, someone's at fault, and it led to one of the most important characters being left out on the roster. It's inexcusable. Someone's at fault, I don't know who it is. I don't want to shoot the blame at anyone in particular, but there is just no excuse to not have Timmy Turner on this roster. But hey, we may not got Timmy, but we got Grandma Gertie. Yeah. And outside of Timmy, I've seen so many requests for so many shows that haven't been represented yet. Chalk Zone, Barnyard, Fanboy and Chum Chum, Tough Puppy. There's so many shows they haven't pulled from, and they just keep digging back into the well of things they've already represented. If you were to ask me the most egregious ones that I would absolutely take out and replace with others, I think Jimmy absolutely stays. Squidward absolutely stays. Plankton, begrudgingly, he can stay. Donnie and Raph, sure, they could stay, but if it was up to me, I would change their designs up to represent more of the turtle shows. LT Gray, godlike choice, he should stay. Glad, absolutely, a big villain, part of the story mode. Angry Beavers, you're thin ice. Really, the 4 that stick out as just shouldn't be on this roster are Gerald, Gertie, Azula, and Amber. But if it was all up to me, rights and all that just be damned, who would I replace them with? Well, Azula, that's easy, I already mentioned before. It should have been Zuko in this spot. He's the most popular character, probably should have been in the first game, but Toph being in, while a little weird, was cool because she offered up an entirely different moveset. But Zuko absolutely would make for an incredible character. He's got his fire bending, he's got his sword, he could have an aggressive playstyle, he would be super fun and should definitely get in eventually. He could be DLC, but that's expensive DLC, 25 bucks, jeez. Gerald and Gertie have a similar problem of doubling up on a cartoon we didn't need a doubling up of. So I say take them both out and replace them both with new cartoons. Instead of Gerald, I would have the one I mentioned earlier, Timmy Turner. He absolutely should have been in the first game. He's got a wide array of riches which could make for an incredibly unique moveset. You could give him the hammer he had in Attack of the Toy Bots and Battle for Volcano Island, that'd be a cool cute callback. I just think Timmy Turner, he has maybe infinite moveset potential and should be in the game already. The only reason I think they would include Gertie would be to add another female representative, and I think you could easily do that while having a new cartoon in there. My vote would be Miko from Glitch Techs. Glitch Techs is a show about a force that fights against video game viruses that come to the real world. It's a ton of fun. The fact that it's a video game based show means it would just kind of make sense in the video game, wouldn't it? It would be another show that represents the more modern Nicktoons. Granted, they didn't treat it well, but most of their shows they didn't treat well. Let's Tigers on the roster and he got 1 season. So I think Miko could still make it despite the short episode count. This show may not have lasted long, but from what I can see, it was pretty popular, and everyone who watched it loved it. Just not a lot of everyone's watched it, which was a bit of a shame. And Miko herself was definitely the standout character. Personally, High Five was my boy, but objectively Miko is way more popular. I've seen a lot of requests for this character for Nick Brawl 2 as well. A lot of polls had her near the top. The titular glitch techs, of which she is one of them, have a gauntlet with a lot of different functions on it. So she could have a lot of zoning tools, maybe some melee weapons. You could give her knockoff Chocobo from Bravestone 12, the knockoff Final Fantasy in universe. Maybe you could have High Five come in for just a team up move, or maybe just for their big super. Just have him in the game in some way, I love 5. I just think Miko checks so many boxes. Cool female character, modern Nicktoon, great moveset potential, could be a ton of fun and very expressive, is already a popular character, beloved by a lot of people. She just fits the bill way too well. Also personally, I really love glitch checks, and it would be the closest thing I could get to getting Fanboy and Chum Chum in the game, because the creators of that show also made Fanboy and Chum Chum, fun fact. Most would call that a glow up. And finally, Ember. Who would I replace Ember with? Is there any other Nicktoon character I could think of that could be a female rocker and fight with a music-based moveset? Maybe one from a series that is more successful than Danny Phantom, and should probably have 3 characters before it does. Love it or hate it, the most successful Nick show since probably the Fairly Odd Parents is the Loud House. I think if anything besides SpongeBob and TMNT should get a 3rd character, it should be that one. And instantly, the character that fits the bill is Luna Loud. Much like Ember, she's a rocker and has that same aesthetic, so she could have a cool music-based moveset as well. I've seen a pretty good amount of requests for the Loud Sisters in this game. Most of who I see are Luna, Luann, and Lynn. And if it was up to me and me only, I would go with Luann. She's my favorite. She's the kooky jokester. She could have a fun, goofy moveset. But I think the most popular one that I tend to see is Luna Loud. People mess with her aesthetic heavy, and if I remember correctly, she was the first Loud kid who wasn't Lincoln to be the star of their own episode. So she's definitely got some legs, and again, the Loud House is super successful. It's got 7 seasons, a full movie, a spin-off series, and a live-action series. So yeah, Loud House has as much legs as Rugrats did back in the day. It is probably the most deserving of having 3 characters over Danny Phantom and definitely Hey Arnold. And Luna's just really freaking cool too. She's always been one of my favorite Loud sisters. So yeah, this would be my revision of the roster as it stands. Of course, this assumes a few things. It assumes that A, every newcomer on this image are all the newcomers, B, there's going to be no cuts, and C, there's no legal mumbo jumbo that I would have to work with. Obviously, I'm not gonna say that I know best better than developers, you know? I don't know what sort of mandates, what sort of rules they had to face with regarding to this roster. All I know is what I see, and what I see is a roster that I really don't like. The representation is still off, some of the choices are and some of the omissions are It's just a lot of murky water that I don't love. Still though, given this number, it could be worse. Now granted, if cuts are a thing, and personally I don't think there's going to be any cuts, because looking at who's not on this image, Lincoln Loud, he's not getting cut. He's the star of one of the only ongoing Nick shows. Leonardo, he's the leader of the Turtles, there's no way he's getting cut. Helga, what would be the point of cutting her only to add 2 different Hey Arnold characters? Also, in the first game, having Leo and another turtle? Okay, sure, not the full team. But having 2 turtles that aren't Leo, that would just be weird. Oblina and CatDog aren't here, I could leave Oblina, but again, these devs are old people. They're not cutting a single 90s character, it's just not happening. And Hugh Neutron, he was the biggest meme in the DLC era. I don't think they would bother going to lengths to add a character like that, only to just cut him the immediate next game. It just doesn't really make sense to me. So yeah, cuts or no cuts, this roster is kinda stinky pants. Outside of Manny, none of the newcomers are hype. I just don't love what I'm seeing here. I'm still buying the game though. Roster be damned, those mechanics look mighty fine. The game still looks fun. It's still going to be an improvement over the first game overall. Roster may not be the best thing in the world, but hey, the DLC could fix it, I guess. It's $50 plus 25 per DLC pack, which is kind of a little much to ask, but I don't know. Anything is an improvement. I'm still buying it day 1 though, or I would if they weren't committing suicide. I don't know what's worse, Emperor, this release timing, seriously, you are gonna get smoked.